the Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.
Hi, I'm Cherry Johnson with the Watauga County Arts Council, and I want to welcome you. Today I have two guests with me that are going to share some information about a great event coming up, an event you may not want to miss. This is going to be something very special. Ladies, would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Mary Reichel, Cherry. I am the Dean of Libraries at the university, and I'm thrilled to be on the program.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Cindy?
I'm Cindy Harbison. I'm an archivist in special collections at the library, and thank you very much for having us.
Oh, we're glad to have you. Now, this is not exclusively your project, is it?
It certainly isn't. This is a project that's had inspiration from many people, but we are co-sponsoring with the Department of Theater and Dance, working very closely with Keith Martin, who I know many of the audience know, and with Mary Ann Adams and all the faculty in the Theater and Dance Department.
The current faculty, but this also includes a former faculty member that we all know as well.
The whole inspiration for this came from Dr. Susan Cole, and Susan Cole is Chair Emerita of the Theater and Dance Department. And when I came to Appalachian in the early 90s, she was chair. We had many great conversations, and she really introduced me to Romulus Linney in the sense of who he was, the importance of his works, and his connection with Appalachian. And that really was the beginning of the whole inspiration to get to know Romulus and then also to acquire his papers.
Okay, now he was not a stranger to this community at all. Let's talk about his background. Which one of you would like to tell us about that?
Well, why don't we start with Cindy? Let Cindy tell some of the facts, and then I'll add some of the personal things that I know.
He was born in Philadelphia, but he came to live with his family at the Linney home, which is still there right off of King Street.
Yeah, for those who are familiar, next to the post office in downtown Benton is what we've always called the Linney home. And so this is the home. And
that was built by Frank Linney, or it was bought by Frank Linney. And so during the Depression, in Romulus's second, third, and fourth years of his life, he lived with his extended family there in the home. And then he moved to Madison, Tennessee with his father, who was a physician. But he came back many times, spent summers here in Boone with his family, especially the Coffey family who were...
Well, I was going to say, he had local relatives that the names we would recognize.
Yes.
So Armfield and Frank Coffey were relatives of his?
Yes.
And so a lot of folks in the community know them through the Watauga Democrat and other things in this community. So this is a local person, or by roots per se, who... moved away and became very well known for his writing,
and of course,
as a playwright.
For some of the historians in the audience, the name Romulus Zachariah Linney will ring true because, of course, his forefathers with that same name were very important politicians in North Carolina, etc. So, of course, very impressive name. Many people just called our Rom Linney, but I continued to call him Romulus. And Romulus ended up here in the early 1950s as a college student. He'd come to visit Margaret Coffey and her sons and the extended family. And he was an Oberlin College student at the time, kind of looking around. He'd already started to act, and he was having a summer where it wasn't just the best, and Margaret suggested, why don't you go take a course at Appalachian? And Romulus said, okay, I'll do that. And he ended up in a course taught by Cratus Williams.
Oh, yes.
And Cratus Williams, much beloved teacher, administrator, longtime citizen of Boone. And the course was on the folklore and songs of Appalachia. And Romulus really became inspired by Cratus Williams, who we know is called the father of Appalachian studies. And actually, Cratus Williams had such an influence on the theater and dance department. He was the early theater director, and he also inspired the library to start the Appalachian Collection, which is the premier collection of books and other materials about Appalachia.
Wow.
Internationally, because it's a wonderful
We didn't know
collection.
he lived in such a great place.
That's right. And Kratus's love of the Appalachian speech, his retelling of stories and songs, really captured Romulus's imagination. And Romulus took those themes and, as Cindy can tell us more about, really wrote about them for the rest of his life.
And what were some of his writings? Let's talk about his writings.
Yeah, that's great.
He was primarily a playwright. He wrote 85 plays, but he also wrote 3 novels. His first 2 published works were novels, Heathen Valley and Slowly by Thy Hand Unfurled, and then Jesus Tales he wrote later. That was his 3rd novel. He wrote 20 short stories, some poems, and 4 opera librettos.
Wow.
Which 4 of his plays were actually adapted into operas. One was commissioned by Placido Domingo and the Metropolitan
Really?
Opera. So he was a big deal in playwriting.
If you had to say what was his most prominent works, what would you say they were?
Excellent question. Cindy and I were just talking about that, and Cindy knows what they are.
Well, Holy Ghost is his most produced play.
Right.
And then The Sorrows of Frederick and Child Byron are 2 of his better known history plays.
Right.
His Appalachian plays, his best known, are probably Holy Ghost, Heathen Valley, and Tennessee.
Okay, because I would have thought A Lesson Before Dying would be in that list.
That is true, yes, definitely. That was especially, he did that towards the end of his life. He adapted Ernest Gaines' novel, and it was performed, it's actually been performed all over the world. It was most recently in July of this year, performed in Shanghai after being translated into Chinese.
As the daughter of an English professor, I'd always heard about that particular piece.
That's great. Well, and of course, all of this then is culminating in the event that we're so excited about,
Yes.
which is coming up Thursday and Friday, September 20th and 21st. Romulus died in January 2011, but September 21st, Friday, September 21st, would have been his 82nd birthday.
Oh, okay.
And he always, I think, almost every year, he came to Boone in the fall. He loved to be here in the fall. He visited his family, he visited Boone, he visited the university, and it just seemed like such a wonderful time to hold this celebration of his life. It's a 2-day event, and when Cindy mentioned, and you mentioned, the Lesson Before Dying, Romulus had lasting friendships throughout his career. He talked once when we were together about his meeting Ernest Gaines and what it was like, and how he was influenced by listening to Ernest Gaines, and then they started talking about the book making a play. And so we have many of his friends and his family members who are coming to Boone next week, September 20th and 21st. And the events that we're sponsoring start with a Thursday afternoon event where we're going to talk about the art of writing and the craft of writing, because Romulus loved writing. And then on Friday, there are master classes where audience members can watch actors from New York. We're bringing in 6 actors from New York, all who make their living being actors, who will work with our students from the high school, from the college, and the audience members can watch professional actors tutor our students in this venue. Cindy, what are some of the events that you're most excited about?
I think I'm most excited about the dedication of the papers. We acquired his...
That would be a big deal.
Yeah, for us.
That's my favorite part. We acquired his papers in May of last year, shortly after his death, and have been hard at work for the past year processing them.
And for folks who aren't in the library world, define his papers.
His papers include correspondence that he wrote and also correspondence received from his friends and colleagues.
Right.
We have a letter from Carlotta Monterey O'Neill, who was Eugene O'Neill's widow, that he wrote to her while he was at Yale School of Drama during his master's thesis, and she responded and allowed him to produce Eugene O'Neill's play Marco Millions without charge of royalties. So we have correspondence like that with Edward Albee and August Wilson and Virgil Thompson and others. There's his a pretty complete set of his manuscripts, including those with his handwritten notations.
Wow.
His book collection, including books that he wrote and books that he used for research or that were meaningful to him. Photographs of productions, his family photographs, production posters, and a pretty complete set of production programs from all of the plays that were produced.
Now, there won't be any actual plays presented.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. So the dedication of the papers is a free event open to the public. We do ask people to get tickets, though, because seating is limited. It will be in the library, and it's at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, September 21st. But following that, we have an event in the Valberg Theater on campus, and that event is a tribute to Romulus Linney. And so the actors who are coming from New York are going to do scenes from his plays. And it's going to be a wonderful evening where we incorporate tributes to Romulus, but his own wonderful words. The words, the scenes that are written about our area of the world, and inspiration that comes from his beautiful language. It's going to be a gala event. It'll be a lot of fun, and that is at, what's the time of that? Does that start at 7:30?
7:30.
7:30, Friday, September 21st at the Valberg Theater.
Titled Back Home in the Mountains.
Back Home in the Mountains. The whole event is titled Romulus Linney, Back Home in the Mountains.
Now, to get tickets to these things, because some of these events are ticketed in terms of dollars, and some are ticketed strictly for seating purposes. Where do they get their tickets?
The place to start is to go to Belk Library Information Commons website at the university, at Appalachian State University. When you go to the Appalachian homepage, it's easy to get to the library. Go to the library's homepage, and you'll click on the event. And from there, it'll take you to the registration information for the free events that you need tickets for, and also for the tribute, which does have a charge to it.
And you know, the universal question in Boone is always parking. So where do you park when you come to something like this?
Excellent question. It's going to be relatively easy for an event at the Valberg. In the evening, you can park behind the Turchin Center for the Visual Arts. You can park in the library's parking garage, all of which will be free and open. There's easy parking for people who need handicap spaces. During the day, then, we are going to make parking available at the stadium lot, which is by the high-rise dorms and the football stadium, and then we'll have shuttles to bring people over to the core of the campus, the library, and the other venues where events are being held.
Well, this is going to be a very, very special event for our community, and we appreciate all the work you two have put into it, you and a lot of other people I know.
Indeed.
Into making this happen for this community and to celebrate someone who we kind of look at as one of our own. And so it kind of is a special opportunity from the old home perspective and also from the literary perspective and the playwriting perspective.
Well, I'm glad you said that we look at Romulus Linney, this great playwright and author, as one of our own, because he certainly felt like he belonged here, and that these were his roots, which let him go on to accomplish such wonderful things.
Certainly influenced him in all ways.
Definitely.
So, well, Cindy and Mary, thank you very much for joining us today and for helping us to learn a lot more about this event. And I hope that they're going to have a lot of folks that are going to come out and really enjoy this. A lot of local people. I know it's obviously you've got people coming in from out of the area, but this will be something that our local community will really enjoy as well, and particularly those who have an interest in theater or writing or just Appalachian heritage. So this will be an
Exactly.
opportunity for all of them. I hope you'll be one of those people and check, as Mary said, the Appalachian website. And also you can always check our website for information about this and so much more.
Watauga Arts Council with your host, Cherry Johnson, serving arts in Watauga County for more than 30 years.